Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We're streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on our content partner Activist Post fan page, facebook.com/Activist Post. We've got an incredible show lined up for you guys today. Vin is actually out of the studio, so I'll be hosting. And Vin is in Anarchapulco, in the heart of the liberty and freedom movement, with all the leaders and all the influencers in the space. So with this show lined up, we've got an incredible show. We're going to go over some of the technologies of freedom, some of the very important technologies of freedom. One of them being ayahuasca with Kat Courtney. Also, Stash Crypto guys will be reviewing that interview again. And to kick off the show, I will be bringing on Vin, live from Anarchapulco. Vin.
It's a small state, but it's like all about liberty. They've got no seatbelt law even, no income tax. They've got libertarians being elected to positions there. They've got a huge group of anarchists living all over the place who are helpful and want more people to move there.
Yeah.
They've got like constitutional carry of guns. You can carry a concealed weapon even without a permit.
Wow.
You know, and they're just working very hard to make it a free place. There's Bitcoin all over the place. I can't wait to visit. I mean, I'm not going to go in the winter time, but in June for Porcupine Fest, I'm definitely going to be there. So yeah, a Free State Project, that was something that was brand new for me. I mean, obviously we're at this, right? So like we know a lot of the things. I've just really been inspired by the people who are here.
Awesome.
Just wonderful people. Everybody's cool, man.
Yeah, making lots of connections,
Next year
I'm sure. Next year I'll be there for sure. So speaking of next year, what is it that you're looking forward to in terms of next year's Acapulco?
Well, here's the thing. This year, you could tell. It's one of those things, you know, when you get involved in, whether it's a movement, whether it's just a new restaurant, whether it's a new nightclub or bar or something, you can tell when you're at the beginning of something that's going to be huge.
Right.
And the first thing I want to say is what I've been shocked at is the professional level that this thing has been produced at. It looks great. It feels great. It's well organized. It's
Lost you a little bit. All right, it's cutting in and out. We'll wait a couple moments. You there, Vin?
Man, like.
There we go. It's picking up again.
Maybe. Are we there?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you can hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me? Okay, great. Mexico. So, no, what I'm looking forward to next year is I know there's going to be a ton more people. I know there's a lot of people that wanted to come this year who didn't, who weren't sure.
Right.
What I'm telling you is, if you're a libertarian, just thinking person, if you're interested in Bitcoin, future technology solutions, if you're interested in this anarchist thing and you're like, who are these people? Let me meet them. I'm telling you, come here, get a glimpse of the future. Next year, what I know is next year there's going to be thousands of, there's probably 1,000, 1,500 people here at least.
Right.
You know, not everybody is at the conference at any time. People are out partying, they're out having drinks, whatnot. But next year, you know, I already talked to the organizer. What they've learned. The other thing is, come by yourself, man. People, don't worry about having to come with somebody. People will just stop and talk to you, invite you to lunch, invite you to dinner. By the end of this, you're going to have a huge group of people that you know, and they're all super interesting. I've had some of the most intriguing conversations of my whole life. Never mind just being able to run into and hang out and sit down and have drinks with all the people that we've been interviewing in the past. So it's fantastic, man. Fantastic.
Awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait for next year. I really wanted to go this year, but I had some things come up where I couldn't, but I'm definitely missing it, man. The background looks amazing. We talked last night, and you said nothing but great things about it, so I'm really looking forward to that. any other things you want to touch on in terms of Anarchapulco and Mexico? And
well, what I can tell you is I've met a ton of people. We've got some great interviews scheduled. Actually talked with Lynn Ulbrich yesterday. Didn't get a chance to see her talk because we were talking in different rooms at the same time, but saw her hanging out down in the lobby of the hotel. We got a chance to talk for a while. She's got updates on Ross. She's coming back on the show on March 27th.
Amazing.
And I've got other interviews lined up that are really, man, this spring into summer is going to be great for the show. So
I can't wait.
I can't wait, man. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to go. I'm going to get off this shoddy connection, and I'm going to let you take over the show.
Yeah, enjoy yourself down there.
Thank you, dude. I'm going to get off to another speaker now. So have fun. Thanks for taking over the show, man. And to all the people out there, stay free, guys. Stay free.
Thanks, Vin. We'll talk to you soon. Have fun.
See you later, bro. See ya.
All right. So we're back, guys. Let me get this control room feed going. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we got some great things lined up for you guys today. We'll be going over the Kat Courtney interview about ayahuasca. A couple things that I wanted to really touch up on. The technologies of freedom. I started diving into freedom, and really I want to get to the root understanding of what freedom is and how it works and how we can maximize and optimize our freedom and what is the true thought process behind that. So I found some really interesting things that really connected with today's show as well. And I found that freedom in itself is a technology. And it's a technology that's built from other technologies as well. And one of the technologies that we talked about on the show a couple times, obviously, is the spiritual technology, and also the technology behind currencies, all these different things. So we're going to go over those couple things today. Also, I wanted to break down just a little bit about what is a technology. Have you guys ever thought of that? What exactly is a technology? Where does it come from? And based on my research, I did a little research on that. It's a systematic treatment to an art, skill, or craft. Okay, so that can definitely be applied to freedom. Freedom is also a skill. It's something that you need to exercise. It's like a muscle. And the more you exercise it, the more free you become. So it starts off with your thinking as well. The way you think, there's a lot of influences, outside influences that we bring into our reality, and those things can come with chains. So it's really interesting. So we're gonna go ahead and get into the Kat Courtney interview, and this is gonna be more on the technology of spiritual freedom, and using the ayahuasca, spirit ancestor vine. So yeah, Kat Courtney is going to be discussing that. I'm going to pass it on to that interview. We'll talk to you guys in just a couple of moments.
If I can. Kat Courtney is a master herbalist with special concentrations in plant spirit medicine. She has 11 years of experience with ayahuasca and wachuma, 8 as an apprentice. Kat has been in over 1,200 plant ceremonies, including a couple hundred in Peru. She's now focused on using plants and shamanic rituals to help people make peace with mortality as an afterlife coach. In this practice, she works with both terminal patients in hospice and non-terminal folks who just want to connect with the other side and let go of the fear of dying. She's also in the process of launching an online marketing agency for cause-oriented businesses called Red Roar. Kat Courtney, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ben. So happy to be here.
I am happy to have you too, even with our little situation. You can see that I'm dressed for the occasion. I'm ready to go down the rabbit hole and go into the jungle. You really have been a special person to me in my life, and of all of the guests that I have had on the show so far, I definitely have the most personal relationship with you. Were it not for you, I don't think that I would have ever been introduced to ayahuasca, which I probably wouldn't be doing this show right now had I not been introduced to ayahuasca. So the first thing I want to say is I really want to say thank you. Could you let people know Well, maybe before we talk about the vine and before we talk about the plant medicine, can we talk a little bit about you? I had actually a friend of mine asked me the other day, and it was very recently, and they said, how is it? You're just different. You're a different type of person. Like, how is it that you're able to walk through the world in this kind of calm way? You don't seem like you're scared. I just really don't feel that fear. And it was immediate that I just said, I'm pretty sure that it's my journeys with psychedelics. I'm pretty sure that that's there's a lot of spiritual practice that I've done, but I think that's the one. You've had an extreme amount of experience, and you've shared it with a lot of people. How did your own?
So I found ayahuasca when I was 30. So,
Okay.
in astrological sense, we do the solar return when we're 30, and like the first life crisis can come up. And I was totally in crisis. I mean, I was heavy alcohol and drug user for escapism, not for the expansion of consciousness. Big difference. And I had, migraine headaches, all kinds of physical issues. Emotionally, I was so fear-based that calling and ordering a pizza was kind of terrifying. I didn't tell people this. It was all under wraps, but, I was a mess. And I was dating somebody who's like a super famous Hollywood special effects guy. And he said the word ayahuasca to me one day. He was like, do you want to go to the jungle and do this? And I figured it was another drug that I've done tons of. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And of course it was a little different. But I certainly, like you, I attribute my blessing of working with that plant in particular for not being a fear-based hot mess anymore. I mean, I'm still neurotic, but, that's a good thing. But yes, so, fast forward 11 years and 1,200 journeys, and I've changed a lot.
So let's talk about that first journey. How much did you know about what it was that you were getting into, and how did that first journey go down for you?
So intellectually, I knew very little. I had read the famous National Geographic article that was really prominent. This is in 2006, so there wasn't a lot of information about it then like there is now. So I really didn't know anything. I heard the word and knew I had to do it. But when I got there in the jungle, we didn't drink the medicine for the first couple of days, and I had a total meltdown. Then if I could have ran away, I would have, but I was stuck in the jungle. And the reason for that is I just felt in my beingness that this was different, that all of my self-hatred and fear, everything came up to the surface, and I didn't want to deal with it. No, I wanted out. But the shaman saw where I was and what I was going through without me having to say anything, and he got me to stay. He said the words, "You are perfect for this work," which I thought was insane. But I trusted him, and the first ceremony mine was fairly typical that a lot of people have. It was really heart-opening and gentle, and I felt my consciousness expand, and I felt a trust with the plant. The second ceremony was hell. The second ceremony was the dark night of the soul. Went straight into my shadow, into all the things that I feared, and it's hard to describe, right? I know you've been there, and it's hard to put words to, but I knew inherently that it wasn't the drug creating a negative experience, right? The medicine was showing me the shadow that I was afraid of, my entire life, and giving me an opportunity to create a different relationship with it. So I drank the next night, even though I'd had the worst night ever, and most people think that's crazy. Like, why would you go drink the same substance that put you through hell? It's because I knew that she was going to take me to the other side if I was brave enough to go there. And within 3 ceremonies, I felt like I, transformed significally. I went back to my home in LA and changed my entire life. Now, was I fixed? No, and I never will be. All of the things that my ego grappled with and feared, I still deal with as a consciousness, but I just have more tools and more expantiousness now that it doesn't affect me in the same way. But it was a wild ride, and it continues to be.
So for those people who don't know, and this was also this was a very mind expanding for me as well with my experience with ayahuasca. I'm obviously I guess you could say that I am a proponent of experimentation with altered states of consciousness, which does include drugs, and I have done a lot of them since a very young age. This one was quite different, and you do really get the idea that this is a medicine, and you get it very, very quickly, not just in sort of the mindset of the people there and the setting, but in the actual physical experience. So for those people who don't know, can you talk a little bit about what the chemical is, sort of how it's ingested, what happens, how it's made, all of those things, so that people can get a little better idea of what it is that we're talking about when we talk about ayahuasca?
Totally. So first of all, as a substance, it's been used for thousands of years by the South American people. And what it is it's actually two plants, right? The traditional brew has ayahuasca, which is a vine, and another plant called chacruna. And the chacruna, the leaves, which actually have the tattoo on my arm is chacruna, and this is ayahuasca on this side. Chacruna has in it DMT, which is actually a substance that shows up in our pineal gland and our brains around day 49 of gestation. And it's also released when we die. And spiritual people feel like that is the physical manifestation of our soul and our beingness, because you know the theory 29 grams, that the moment that you die, so the moment that you die, you secrete DMT as well. And so, I think there's credence to the idea that that is the physical part of our soul there in our third eye. It's called ayahuasca, though, because ayahuasca is just one of the only plants on our planet that creates a protective coating or veil around the DMT, and you ingest it as a tea. So if you just ingested the chacruna, the DMT, without ayahuasca, you'd pee it out, you wouldn't have an experience. But ayahuasca creates that protection so that your natural DMT in your brain is released when you drink it, and you have the opportunity to have these very cosmic out-of-body experiences, which, by the way, it happens sometimes when you dream. In really intense dreams, you experience DMT as well. So that's the best comparison, right, is a very intense, vibrant dream is the best comparison I can give to ayahuasca without having someone having done it.
So the other aspect of ayahuasca is that, I guess, for most people's experience is we talk about it's in the setting of a ceremony, which is different, I think, than a lot of drugs, that there's a ceremonial aspect, and that there are things in addition to the chemical that are really kind of very important to get the fullness of the whole process. Can you talk a little bit and explain yourself as having been a leader of these ceremonies and an organizer, the significance of the ceremony, what happens in the ceremony, and why the ceremony is important to ayahuasca? Yeah,
it's such a good question, because any of us that have journeyed in any altered space, that set and setting is a big deal. And so what the ceremonial space creates is, first and foremost, we want to make people feel safe. So they feel totally comfortable that they can do the inner work and that they don't have to worry about anything external, that the space is controlled, nobody's going to bust in with pizza or, disturb the space. And we have a lot of, kind of energetic tricks that we use in addition to other plants and things that we do to create that space. Of course, sage, who is the old standby in any kind of sacred space, she just helps to cleanse and to create an environment where you feel like you can just really go deep. So that's step one, is creating a womb, basically. And it's super important that anybody embarking on an ayahuasca journey make sure that they're doing it with someone who is treating it in that sacred way, and that you know what you're drinking, the brew, and you know who you're with, because the shaman is going to sing songs that are extremely powerful and healing. And these are songs that have been passed down for thousands of years. And you also need to be aware that the vibration of that individual resonates with you, and that they've done their own shadow work, because you don't want to be super vulnerable in an altered space, sitting in an environment with a really toxic, negative person that is essentially spewing that at you in song. And I've been there. I've worked with people that, let's just say they haven't done their shadow work. It's not necessarily bad people.
What is shadow work? Let me just stop you, because I think it's very important. It's something that I feel lucky that I think I went into this whole thing at a time in my life where I had by hook or by crook had to do a lot of work with my ego previously. So either maybe I wasn't surprised by what I was about to go through, or it was made a little easier. There was a little less burden there. But what is this? Because it's a very, very important concept that I think people who have not walked through the process, I think it might be hard to understand, and it might be something that's actually scaring people to hear the term shadow work.
Yeah, well, and not to scare them further, but it should. No, it's a great question. The way that I use it is in context with how Carl Jung, the great psychotherapist, talked about shadow, which it's just the aspects of ourselves that we're afraid to confront and look at. So I like to say there's a Mother Teresa and a Hitler in all of us, right? We're all made from the same source. We all have the capacity to go in any direction on the spectrum of life experience. But if you live in a repressed space where you're afraid of violence or anger or any expression of what we would call a darker emotion, then it has a hold on you, and you have the propensity to become more of a violent, angry human being if you haven't looked at your shadow, dark side of yourself.
Can I stop you for one second on that? Just to go back to what you said. If you live in a space where you are frightened of violence, you have a better chance where you're pushing back the idea of violence. You're pushing back the ideas of hate. You don't want to deal with them. That's actually how you're going to manifest those things, or how those things are actually going to come into your world.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, there's this great expression, that which we resist persists, and I would add, and intensifies. So, and I relate to the person, like you were talking in your first hour a lot about our political landscape and how we've got a lot of people protesting violence. Well, I remember I was at a peace protest fighting for peace.
Right.
I had this epiphany of like, wait, and this was like 15 years ago before ayahuasca, and I had this epiphany of, hold on a second, you don't fight for peace.
Yes.
You become peace. And so that was one of my first conscious moments of looking at my shadow and realizing I'm fighting for something out of anger because I'm angry that other people are angry.
Right.
That means I'm part of the problem. So that's what I mean by the things that we are ignoring and resisting, they actually have a hold on us. It's like if you're in emotional pain, if you just try pushing it away repeatedly, it hurts so much worse. Whereas if you draw a bubble bath and invite it in and say, okay, I'm ready to feel this, and cry or release however you need to, it releases its hold, maybe just a little bit in that moment, but no, it doesn't, it removes you from that space of suffering.
And yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense to me. I think though, many people are so unaware that this is even a part of their life, although I think you and I both know that in the society that we live in, it's so cluttered and it's so dirty in that way that I'm saying on a psychic level, right? That it's almost impossible to be in this society and to not have these issues with your shadow, and especially having the distractions to not deal with them. So how, I guess, I mean, I know some of these things for myself, but I mean, you having organized ceremonies, having sat in ceremonies with thousands of people, how in talking with these people, how does the plant, and it feels more like a spirit, and perhaps if you could talk a little bit about that experience, and because that's very different. What is it that this spirit, that this plant, that this process is doing? How does it dig in? Because it is getting in. I call it a psychic massage, I guess. Like, it is going to get in on those places and dig real hard, but it's going to release it. What is happening, or how do you understand it? How do shamans understand the process that is taking place?
Okay, so let's first address that plants have consciousness. Everything has consciousness. Plant consciousness is different than ours. Of course, plants communicate in different ways, but they have personalities. They have an essence. So when you take ayahuasca, and like you said, I know I've sat with thousands of people. I can't think of a single person that after a dose or two didn't feel the presence of a female spirit.
I did, for sure. An older female spirit, as a matter of fact. For sure,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, even these hardcore skeptics after ceremony would be like, oh my God, it was like this female was talking to me. I'm like, well, she was. So, and look, I can't keep a houseplant alive. When I started this process, I thought that was insane. And here I am, the plant whisperer now. So I can attest to the skeptics that it's absolutely true. You are ingesting a very powerful plant consciousness. All plants have different personalities, so I'll speak, but ayahuasca specifically, I call her the medicine of duality. It is the only altered space that I personally have ever been in, and I've been in a lot of them, that goes in both directions. And what I mean by that is the cosmic space that we're used to if we've done any other psychedelics. So you feel your consciousness expand, and like some of the images that you're showing on the screen, like these colorful kaleidoscope, like sacred geometry things come in. So you get to go cosmic. But more importantly, what makes her different is you get to go deeper into you. But you get to do it from like an airplane view, right? You're 30,000 feet up, and you have a less attached, identified view of yourself and your patterns and the things that you're going through. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy because it's 30,000 feet up. It's literally, I mean, the hardest thing I've ever done. The dark nights on ayahuasca are terrifying. But the fact that you have that presence, that awareness that there's this spiritual entity kind of guiding you, it's very comforting. You don't feel alone, even though you have to do the work yourself. So that's how I kind of describe on a scientific level how ayahuasca is able to get us into that shadow, is she expands us in both directions. And really that's all she is. We call her a healer, but she doesn't actually heal anything. We learn to heal ourselves. She expands our consciousness into a place where, for example, for me, I realized in my first ceremony why I had migraine headaches. She didn't heal them. She showed me the trapped emotion, gave me the invitation to feel it, which I took, which is why it was horrific. You can imagine, like, at that point, 30 years basically of emotional trauma that I had repressed right here without knowing it, and took the invitation to feel it, and cried and purged, which purging is a normal, natural part of taking this medicine. It's a way she moves the energy up and out of us.
Now, when you say purging, can you tell people what it is that you mean by purging?
Growing up, it's a nice way to put it. Yeah, but contrary to popular belief, ayahuasca does not have alkaloids that causes us to vomit every time. Having drank as often as I have, I got to a place where I didn't purge very often. So it's not a given. It's one of the ways that ayahuasca helps move stuck energy in us, because our physical, emotional, mental ailments, all of these are just energy that is stuck, because we are just energy, right? So ayahuasca is a master at moving, and you feel one of the symbols for her is a snake. The reason being, when you drink it, as you know, you feel this upward motion.
Oh, yes.
Through your body. Yes. And again, the theme of resistance is very prominent in ayahuasca. If you resist the purge, it's going to be horrible and nightmarish. Whereas if you invite it and you say, okay, I'm going to allow this, and I'm going to stay open that maybe if I'm lucky, I'll get insight into what I'm releasing. Sometimes you can connect, it's guilt, sadness that your father passed, anger, whatever. Sometimes you don't. Either way, it's such a gift, and it feels so amazing to get rid of shit that's been in you maybe for years and years.
So we talk a lot on this show about this concept of resistance being, and look, it's kind of things that we talked about in the first hour. I think it really is a massive, if there's any consciousness shift, I think that, and we talk a lot about politics on the show, but it's really to show it kind of from a more going internal, consciously, and changing who you are inside, and then the world very much changes outside. Resistance is this is a plant that teaches you, no matter how much you think you're able to surrender, this is definitely a process, ayahuasca, that teaches you how to surrender and why resistance is bad. We're taught in our culture that resistance is good. And as a matter of fact, this word resistance, particularly by some sectors of the population, is really seen as a very powerful thing. We are the resistance. We're standing up against this thing. We're resisting. In the clips we played for the Women's March, resistance was a word that kept coming up over and over and over and over again. What is the problem what's the fundamental problem with resistance, and what is it about it, and what can practices like shamanic practices and ayahuasca teach us about shifting our consciousness? What do we get when we stop resisting, and what is the alternative?
I love this question. So I didn't march, by the way. I wasn't one of the women, because I have nothing to resist anymore. At least I consciously try to cultivate that space, because resistance is fighting fire with fire. It's taking the same energy that you are resisting, or that you perceive that you are resisting, and slamming it up against the same energy. And so what are you going to have? You're going to have more of the same. You're going to stay angry, you're going to stay miserable, you're going to stay divisive and separate from your brothers and sisters. And it's a necessary part of the process to evolving. I was an activist and a fighter, and I totally get that mentality, and it's necessary when it's genuine. But I think for most of us, there's a place where we realize, wait a second, it's not actually helping. You can't fight fire with fire. My favorite quote around this is from Martin Luther King Jr., that you can't drive out hatred with hate. Only love can do that. Right? And there is no love in resistance. It's anger. Love is underneath that, but that's not what you're expressing. So to bring it to ayahuasca, she shows you through your journey into self that when you're looking at the parts of yourself that are super ugly and uncomfortable, just like we see in our culture and our government, we look at aspects of shadow that we find really uncomfortable, control and violence, etc. Ayahuasca gives you that opportunity to look at it in yourself, and you can resist it. Of course you can, but it sucks. Right. And those are nights that are miserable, and you realize at some point, if you're lucky, like, wait a second, I'm causing my misery here. The emotion is what it is, but the resistance to it is actually the core of suffering. So when you release that, because, I'll give you a really tangible example. In ceremony, one of my jobs is always to make sure nobody's in fetal position, like curled up. Right. Because energy can't move through us when we are clamped down. So I always try to keep people's shoulders back, especially if I feel they're going through something challenging, to breathe and let the energy move through, to drop resistance, to accept what is and let something else come forth. So for me, that's why resistance is just an energy that I do my best not to play with. Right. It hurts.
Right. I mean, I have gained so much, and one of the most interesting things about this process, and certainly this journey, and mine is, I think under a dozen ceremonies compared to, people who have done hundreds. But I've gotten everything from being able to forgive members of my family to, like, dude, organize your your space at home a little bit better, get your office organized, and get your file cabinet, which was one of the weirdest ceremonies I ever had, where it was like, really, file cabinet? That's what I'm getting here. But it's interesting how many things, when you walk into this, how many things you start to realize you really don't have a handle on. And to the point of resistance, I do often feel like it's very, that resistance is very arrogant in many ways, because it does assume that you have the right answer. I find myself constantly searching for answers, and every time I get close, I realize that I really don't have it yet. Is that something that has kept bringing you back and has seen you expand? Is that sort of, it's because it seems like, 1,000 ceremonies, but yet every time I talk to you, you say you're still growing, you're still realizing more and more and more. When does it stop? Like, do we ever get it?
Well, I think we've got examples of people in history that have gotten it, that are prophets. I think Jesus and Gandhi, and even MLK was close, right? And Mother Teresa. We see people who are close, but what they do is they give us an example that our suffering as a human being is a rite of passage. It's just part of what we go through. And I get feedback a lot from people that expect me to be Jesus basically after drinking ayahuasca 1,000 times, and I'm far away from that. Because this journey into being an enlightened being, if you want to use that term, I think it takes lifetimes. I look at the person I was 10, 15 years ago, and I have transformed tremendously, but I'm not Jesus, not anywhere close. So I think it takes lifetimes to reach the state of consciousness that some of our prophets kind of mirrored for us, because, we can see the progression of our individual evolution by looking at our culture. And it's plain to see we've got a long way to go. And that's okay. That's why we're here, is to evolve. And so for me, it's totally okay that on a personal level, I'm still neurotic, I still have fear, I still have all of the things that tripped me up as a human. What is different is that I am spacious enough to be totally okay with that. And to be gentle in myself when I slip back into being arrogant or egoic or resistant or any of those things. To catch myself and go, oh, that's so cute, I'm still human, all good. Yeah?
How do you know? How does someone know if they're ready to start this process? Because it seems like I think you and I have known each other for maybe 3.5 years at this point, perhaps. And it's interesting because I feel like when I met you, this whole ayahuasca thing was, and I seem to have this happen in my life a lot, but ayahuasca was not quite yet in the consciousness, and it was like literally 3 months after, it was just like, boom! Now every person that I talk to has pretty much at least heard. Many people are interested. I'm having friends of mine who are saying, went and did the ceremony, whatever, but maybe it wasn't so good, something happened. How does someone know when, one, it's time, and two, now that things are different, I was very lucky because I guess since it wasn't out there that much, finding you and finding the group of people that you had sort of collected, if you will, was I felt very well that she, the vine, had collected. I felt very safe. It really felt from the jump, but I think now people are going out and they're pursuing it. It definitely leaves the opportunity for it either not being the right time for them or it not being the right route that they're going. How does someone know if this is right for them? And then once they decide that it's right for them, what process should they go through? What things should they be thinking about or not worried about, but aware of as they seek out someone to do this with?
So because two things occur. On an internal level, you have a calling. That's what we like to call it. And you find yourself sort of Googling more information about it on off hours and thinking about it, or you have dreams about doing it, and it starts becoming a very prevalent part of your consciousness. So you feel called. Whether that's for 5 seconds, that's all it took for me. I heard the word and I was in. I knew I was called. For some people, it takes them years of getting into a place where they feel they're ready after hearing about it, and it's all perfect. But then externally, it's time because you've connected with a place that makes you feel safe, with organizers and or shaman that clearly have your best interest in mind. And so when you're embarking on that process and you have the opportunity, my big thing is just make sure who you're sitting with, first of all, has trained for years. I literally have seen people from the group I've been a part of that drank twice and felt that they were ready to lead ceremony. That terrifies me because you're really you're trusting people. This sounds dramatic, but you're trusting that shaman with your life, not necessarily physically, because people rarely die, only if they already had pre-existing conditions. But from a spiritual perspective, you are super vulnerable and potentially could be traumatized rather than go through something very healing. And so when you're interviewing, and getting to know the people that are organizing, you trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, don't push that aside. Trust that. Because there are a lot of groups that, even if they're doing it from a really pure place, they haven't done their shadow work. So you don't want to sit with somebody who has any level of fear with the medicine or any stone inside of themselves that's left unturned, because that could become part of your experience. And you're there for your own personal journeying, not to hold space for, a shaman that's having a bad night.
Right.
And can be super, super traumatizing. So, ultimately, with both, are you ready? And is the group you found the right group? You trust yourself. We know these things. We are very highly intuitive beings. We just sometimes let our heads kind of overwrite what we know to be true. So it's very instinctual.
Okay. I think we've covered the things about ayahuasca. Now I would like to talk about, because I find this very interesting, and it ties in, and I know that this comes from your own experience. This practice that you have now developed, which I think even talking about it for many people is a little bit scary, but this afterlife coach, can you explain to us, you and I have spoken about this a little bit, could you explain to us what is an afterlife coach, and how did you come to decide that this was something you wanted to do?
Well, I got it from ayahuasca. So so it started with one thing that I want to mention about somebody embarking on this journey is the ayahuasca ceremony itself is actually one piece of the puzzle, and it's sometimes not even the most important piece. The most important piece is what you do with the experience. As with any transformative experience, aha moment, expansive kind of space, it's easy to go back to our old patterns and not integrate that profound opening. So I started doing life coaching with people that came and had profound experiences with the medicine and needed help integrating it into their daily lives so that they could benefit from that expansion and not just have it be an experience they sort of put on the back burner. Well, that kind of spun into a place where I was really acting as a therapist, which I'm not, for people that, of course, wanted to come and talk about all manner of challenges in their life. And I knew that wasn't the core of what my soul came to do here, to assist. And death kept coming up. Ayahuasca, in one interpretation, the word itself means vine of the soul. But soul and death is the same in Quechua, in the language of which that comes from. Because they don't believe in death in terms of death being an ending. It's just your soul leaving its house and going on another journey. So death kept coming up. And one day I'm in ceremony and the expression afterlife coach came through. I feel it was a gift from ayahuasca. And I'm like, that's That's what I want to do. I want to help people come to terms with mortality, because I totally feel, Vin, that if we didn't fear the fact that we're all going to die, if we knew and felt from a space of wisdom the eternal nature of our souls, we wouldn't be protesting, killing each other.
I agree, 100%, 100%.
So that's where this all came from. What's going to happen with it? I have no idea. There's not like a blueprint of here's how to be an afterlife coach. But I'm using all of the shamanic tools that I've been gifted to help people specifically with the fear of death and at the end of their life, when they know they're terminal and they want to go out in a much more protected spiritual way, which, by the way, most other cultures do this in terms of creating protection and a safe, loving space for people who are dying. We don't, but I'm kind of passionate about trying to bring that back to our Western culture too, of treating death as a really sacred rite of passage.
Wow, very, very important. I also agree with you quite a bit. This concept of the fear of death being so important for, I don't know if I ever told you this, but for a period in I guess I was 20, I lived in a dojo and just studied Kyokushin like as a live-in student. I don't know if I ever told you that, but it's based on it's kind of a modernized version, the Kyokushin live-in. It says Budo, which is like the warrior way. And what I learned when I was there was the sort of the spiritual and psychological things that what it took to be a samurai. And people would think that it was all about sword play and you're wearing your armor and could you ride a horse and could you shoot a bow and arrow. But the true measure was really an absolute non-fear of death. That was truly what gave these men their power, was that they had gone out and they had truly to their core, they were no longer afraid of death. And what you're able to do at that point and who you're able to be and how principled you're able to be. I think that that's really what it comes down to, is that if you don't have this fear of death, which is the ultimate fear, that's when you can really be principled, don't you think? That's when you can really say, this is what I believe and I'm going to live up to it no matter what.
Yeah, death is just the shadow of life. It's the ultimate shadow. So if we understand that and are willing to literally invite it in, not just go, okay, I'm going to die one day, I'm not going to think about it. But one of the things that I do with people is give them an opportunity to really visualize their death and invite it in. Like, what do I want to wear? What song would I want playing? Like, really spend time. Not that we get to dictate it. If we're lucky, we do. If we're hit by a bus, then not so much. But it's just a matter of befriending that space. And you use the operative word, at least I think so, is power. Power is an aspect of a shadow that a lot of us are afraid of. Because we attribute power sometimes to the dark side, which is violence and, using power against somebody else. But our shadow gifts us the opportunity to use power in a positive way. And to me, the ultimate space of power is truly knowing that there is no such thing as death. Because then you realize you're kind of in a video game and you can play without that same level of fear, and you can own your own personal power, which is what I feel our souls are here to do, is we all have a special imprint of power that when expressed authentically is going to uplift the world and raise the vibration. But it all starts with understanding shadow, which is, of course, the deep seat of death, of mortality.
So I think we're living in, we spoke earlier about how amazing the times are that we're living in now, and a lot of people would think that I was just maybe talking about technology and the way that those things have moved, but we're also, as we can tell from this conversation, we're also now rediscovering, we're having a renaissance of some technologies that have been around. And I guess I would call it a technology. Like it's a technology that's been around for a very long time. And maybe there's some not maybe. I know that there's some greater chance for healing, and I thank you for coming on, for sharing this. I'm sure that there's quite a few people who have maybe heard of ayahuasca. I think that seeing you and meeting you via this interview, that they'll probably feel a lot more comfortable that it's something that they might want to approach. I advise everybody to approach it. Is there anything that I've left off that you would want to leave people with as they sort of start down this journey?
Just to re-emphasize, just you trust your own intuition around whether you feel you're ready and that you found the right people to guide you. Because I can't emphasize enough how important it is to feel comfortable in that space, because you don't want to add to your trauma. You want to heal from it.
I love it. Well, Kat Courtney, thank you for sort of sticking around through all of our little technical difficulties. But this was a wonderful interview, and I think that you have added so much, not just to the show, but I think to all the lives of all the people who are watching. So thank you so much, Kat Courtney.
Thank you for doing this and for having me, Vin.
All right, bye. See ya.
Wow, such a great interview. Really get you thinking about the technologies. This was obviously geared to, or talking about ayahuasca, but it was, really kind of breaking down the ancient technology used for freedom within spirituality, which to me I found fascinating. So a lot of great stuff there. Really, what I liked about this interview was when she talked about resistance, and also if you think about resistance, it's really building something as opposed to steering away from it. Think about resistance. You go to the gym, you work out, you use resistance to build, not to conquer. So it applies to that as well. So we're going to go to a quick little break, and then we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about a more modern technology for freedom with the Stash Crypto guys. And really, this one's great too. You guys are going to love this. I'm sure you've already seen bits and pieces of it, or maybe the whole thing, but this one is more modern technology, and what they talk about really is how the banks are already obsolete. They're no longer there. They just don't even know it yet. And with this kind of technology, like the Stash Crypto and Bitcoin, it can really break those chains. So we're going to go to a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll bring the interview from the Stash Crypto guys on. All right, and welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. My name is Christian Reyes. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on the Facebook page of Activist Post, our content partner, facebook.com/Activist Post. We are going to get into the interview with Stash Crypto, and once again, talking about this incredible technology with Bitcoin and how you can basically have your own banking system. So I'm going to bring them on quickly, and we'll go over that, and you guys enjoy this quick interview.
Chris Odom, creator of Open Transactions Project and co-founder of Monetas. Chris has spoken at conferences all over the world and has been featured in Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and Euromoney. Chris was recently added to the registry of transcendent financial cryptographers. And we have Cliff Baltzley, the founder of Hushmail, who has been a serial entrepreneur in cryptographic software company for over 20 years. Cliff has been using digital currency since the 1990s, and he believes in personal privacy for all users of the internet, including the freedom that comes with strong crypto finance solutions. So, gentlemen, welcome to the Vin Armani Show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vin.
Cliff prefers to appear off camera. He's managed to keep his face off of the internet for the past 20 years.
And I want to dig into that, and that I think that's sort of I don't know if I want to call it ideological, but certainly where you guys are coming at this from from sort of a spiritual standpoint, if you will, is significantly different, I think, than most of the people that I encounter who are in sort of the cryptocurrency scene right now. So this show is primarily about, it's kind of a libertarian view. We're trying to make people a little more free and tell them what are those things out there that are going to make them more free. So I don't know if were you guys able to hear sort of my little layman's terms, 10,000 foot view of Bitcoin for those and how it relates to freedom for those people who
Yes.
you were able to hear that. Is there anything you guys would like to add for the person that you meet who just has absolutely no clue about what Bitcoin is that you could tell them about it?
Well, Bitcoin is the best way to look at it is it's like a digital form of gold.
Right. With all, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
So a digital form of gold in that it's got a limited supply, right? And that it's it can be universally traded. It's fungible. It can be broken down. Are those the ways that you mean it?
It has all the same properties as gold, monetary properties, in the sense that for example, what makes gold a better form of money than dirt? Or what makes gold a better form of money than wheat? And there are certain properties that make something a very effective form of money. It's scarce in supply, it's limited in production, it's fungible, it's evenly divisible. Diamonds are extremely valuable, but they're not evenly divisible and they're not fungible. One diamond is not an easy substitute for another diamond. And so because of that, gold is a better form of money than diamonds and will be selected by natural market forces as a form of money before diamonds would be. Gold is more durable than food, right? Food is extremely valuable, but gold is more durable. And therefore, gold is a better form of money than food and will tend to be selected by the free market as a form of money, and so on and so forth. And Bitcoin basically has all those same properties that gold has. And in addition, of course, it's also, can be sent anywhere on the earth instantly.
And it's not controlled by any central authority, as it were.
Correct.
Which
Yes,
I think is one of the most important things. I know that a lot of people watching this are very concerned about, and people have become concerned, and a lot of people get involved in sort of the liberty movement once they find out what the deal is with the Federal Reserve and with central banking, that's a huge reason for people to get involved. Now, you guys are approaching with your company Stash and with your product Stash Node Pro, you're really coming at this. There are some values that you hold dear. Obviously, privacy is one of them. Can you talk to us about and explain to people why? Maybe Cliff, if you want to do this, explain to people why privacy, and especially privacy online. Explain to them why that's so important.
Well, then there's. Honestly, I don't think we have enough time in a show to give all the examples.
Sure.
Even our most recent election, people realizing that seeing what people can hide behind via emails or the situation of if you don't have privacy or the ability for the population to have privacy, you're not going to have liberty. That's really when you've got a world where the people who are generally in control have access to everyone's private information, yet the individuals of the world don't. You're not going to have liberty for very long, and it will get worse and worse over time. When I created Hushmail back in 1998, I knew exactly this kind of a situation where your average person online could not just use a simple email encryption system. And now we're trying to get to the world of doing this for people's finances and their own money. You have to have autonomy and control over your own money, and you have to have the ability to have privacy, or liberty won't exist for very long. That's at least my impression of it.
So, and it's why I really wanted to have you guys on. I'm a software developer myself, and I've been developing with Bitcoin and on the blockchain myself, and running my own node. And we'll get into what a node is. I'm sure in this discussion. one of the things that I think when most people get involved in Bitcoin, and maybe after this somebody wants to go and experiment, one of the things that rubbed me the wrong way, and I mean, I guess this is the basis of what you guys are doing, and you guys can talk about it, is I felt like I always had to go through some third-party company, even though I knew that the whole entire promise of Bitcoin was that I was going to have direct sort of contact with the network.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and yet I don't see that happening. Can you talk to us about sort of what the current state is, and without getting too incredibly technical, explain to people how Bitcoin is different and what is now lacking that you guys are trying to provide here? What's the problem that you guys are solving?
Well, Bitcoin definitely solves the problem of allowing people to transact directly with one another without having to use a third-party service. I don't know if you guys can hear that. There's an airplane going overhead here.
Yeah, we're totally good. We're totally good.
Pretty good. So, but there are still third-party services that people use because the functionality is not quite there. You know, like with Bitcoin, you can send a payment to another person, but you can't do a lot of more advanced functionality, such as market trading or smart contracts. Or recurring payments or invoices and these kinds of things without using the services of a third party. Of course, that's just the state of the market right now. That's not the technological reality. You know, the technological reality is that all these things are now possible without third-party services.
Now, I just want to stop you real quick so that people understand when we say third party for most people, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but in people's current day-to-day, that third party would essentially be a bank, right? A payment processor, something like if I do a card transaction at a store, I'm not actually giving my money to the store. I'm giving it to a payment processor who's then sending it to a bank my bank first, right? Is then sending it to a payment processor that's then sending it to their bank, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot. So when we say third parties, that's what you mean by third parties in the transaction, right?
Correct. Yeah, these are transactions that, you know, in the 20th century, you needed a third party to facilitate these transactions. And now we're very quickly moving into a future where these kinds of third party services are going to be replaced with consumer devices and software components.
Yeah, we're taking the third party out of the equation entirely. That means the payment processors, the banks, the Mt. Goxes of the world that hold the funds while they do exchange trading. With smart contracts, this can affect any market such as the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange or commodities. You don't need a third party to transact more advanced services and financial instruments now. And that's what the Stash Node Pro is, its very first ability for trying to give our users that level of control themselves rather than needing any other human being or any other business to manage their money. They manage it themselves. And actually, we've got the Stash Wallet app up right now. That's our first interface into the Stash Node Pro so that people with Android devices and iPhone coming soon have that ability to have a nice GUI graphical way to manage their own money sitting on their Stash Node Pro, which is starting with Bitcoin. That's our first currency we've implemented.
So let's walk through this slowly. And I don't want to just jump over what you guys said. I really want to go back and reiterate what you are saying. What you are saying is that this is a technology that, although it's I mean, this is like a first version for you guys, but what you guys have created is a realistic way to basically eliminate banks from the average consumer's life of the average consumer to retail, wholesale, whatever, in terms of their financial transactions, to basically take banks out of the equation in terms of people's financial lives.
I would say that Satoshi Nakamoto has invented that, and all the rest is just consequences playing out.
Sure. But I guess my question is, that's such a powerful concept. Why is it that the solutions that have come up for the most part, the companies that are coming into this. Like if I go and I look at the hashtag blockchain or the hashtag Bitcoin on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever, I'm seeing company after company after company after company. If the promise is elimination of the third party, why is every company that I see fundamentally a third party?
Because it's very hard to do the crypto and do it right and put it in a product where people can use. It takes this is the first time this is coming together. Chris started an open transactions code-based system, and this is almost going on 7 years ago of how long it's taken this code to get to this level. I'll give you also an example. When I did Hushmail in 1998, I was wondering why it was 20-some years since public key encryption was developed that no human being had an easy-to-use interface for full-strength encryption for their email. These things take a lot of work and a lot of specialty, advanced time and programming to make happen. And this is the first time it's happening with the financial transaction system.
I mean, furthermore, we have to consider how historic this is. You know, when you think about the invention of the printing press or the invention of the internet, which is basically the level of invention that Bitcoin represents. You know, this paper was released in 2008, right? The code was released in 2009.
Yeah.
So it's not even 10 years. I mean, we're in the first 10 years. This is like someone just invented the internal combustion engine. You know, what was it like 10 years after the printing press? Right. It's going to take a little bit of time. But I'll tell you what, the reason that you see a lot of companies going in the wrong direction right now is because they don't know any better. This is brand new. Everyone's still kind of going along the way that they've always known to do. Investors are funding companies that make sense to them in the current environment, and there are opportunities for them to make money even as regulated entities right now. Although they're going to get systematically disintermediated and disrupted until the industry doesn't exist anymore.
Let's talk about the regulation aspect, because that's something that I find to be one of the most interesting aspects, and for myself in terms of sort of the new libertarian movement, whether it's the voluntarism or agorism, this coming libertarian movement that's embracing these technologies for freedom. One of the pitfalls that I'm seeing is I'm seeing people embracing Bitcoin and then simultaneously having this desire that it be taken on and sort of regulated by the government or governments. Where are you guys in terms of what are your views of regulation of Bitcoin, or is it just something that is that government is basically like something that can't even interface, that this is, as you say, an innovation that's basically beyond where government is even supposed to be or can be?
People just don't know any better. I'll tell you, here's a good way of looking at it. I used to live in Europe, and they have a really good public transportation system in Europe. And, if I wanted to go somewhere in town, I could just walk down out on the sidewalk outside my apartment and step on a bus. A bus will come along every 1 or 2 minutes. I go 2 or 3 stops up the street, step off. Maybe if I want to go to the next town, I get off at the train station. I wait 20 or 30 minutes. I get on a train to Paris and be in Paris in 2 hours.
From Switzerland.
Yeah. Right? Now imagine that one day a new technology is invented. And the new technology basically allows anyone to just snap their fingers and be instantly anywhere they want on the surface of the earth.
Right.
Now, my question for you is, 10 or 20 years later, what do you think everyone's going to be using?
Right. Right.
I mean, it's already over and they just don't know it yet.
Right. Okay. That's perfect. And I'm glad that I've got you guys on to talk about this, because it is a different point of view, but I think that it is clearly, when you understand what's going on, this is clearly the point of view. I mean, I understand the speculators wanting to make some money right now. And sure, and of course the technology itself, I mean, who's to say that Bitcoin will be the end-all be-all, which I'm sure that it won't. I mean, the blockchain technology is going to evolve, and Bitcoin has some aspects of it that certainly need improvement, and people are trying those things. But let's talk about your particular product and how it enables that exactly what you described, that sort of snap your fingers and you're somewhere else in the world, and it's and it's yours. So Stash Node Pro, this is a personal node. Can you sort of explain 10,000 foot view, what is a node in terms of the network that is the overall blockchain?
Well, one thing I should start off and say, Vin, is we named this product the Stash Node Pro because we think it worked, and also no one had it trademarked. We have a Bitcoin full node on it. It is kind of a node of a network system that we're creating and generating and working with community to make basically a mesh network in the long term overall. So it is a node in that respect. But the whole idea of this is a product that people can now start to, with the beginning systems, the inklings of this, is you can start to manage and control your own money autonomously. We're starting with Bitcoin, and we can get into what is a Bitcoin node and what these things mean. But our system is currency agnostic, which means we're going to over time allow people to do everything from gold digital coins to dollar coins or other kinds of classical fiat currency coins to all kinds of different cryptocurrencies that currently exist in the world, and it will let market forces decide, which currency is the best currency to use. But we're starting with Bitcoin because it's the natural first start.
Understand that from a user perspective, the user perspective is not so much that he wants to use a node. The user perspective is the Stash wallet. Okay. The wallet software is the user's interface. And then there's other components that are sort of add-ons to that, the node being one example of those.
Let's start from the user standpoint, and maybe we can work back. Christian, I think we have there the wallet graphic. Maybe if you guys want to talk us through what we're seeing here. So this is the interface to your product. So this is it's not the phone, it's the little box that we've been showing, but this is the interface to it. It's through an app then?
Yes. And so first of all, consider that, if someone downloads the app, this is going to work for them even if they don't have a node.
Got it.
So many of the users will just have the app, which will be
So people listening right now, could they go and download the app now?
Not right now. It's not available yet in the App Store, but we're going to be releasing it soon as we start shipping these nodes.
Actually, I should be clear. It is available on the Google App Store now, but it is in an alpha testing version, so we have a very limited group of people running it and testing it now. And we will be announcing this to the beta style and versions here later on that people can then, get past the alpha stage. But it is in the Google Store now, and we're going to have an announcement probably sometime next week about how we're going to be at least slightly opening up our group of people to use this Bitcoin wallet, which has certain features that no other Bitcoin wallet on the planet currently has. It's got some very advanced features.
Well, let me give you an example.
Okay, please.
So, for example, let's say that you had a normal Bitcoin wallet and you wanted to deposit some of your Bitcoins into Coinbase. Okay. Or to one of these other, third-party services. The idea of the Bitcoin node is that you would just deposit it onto your own node instead. Instead of trusting someone else to hold your money, you would just deposit there and use it there for yourself and hold it yourself. And it allows you to just get extra additional functionality that you would otherwise normally use a third-party service for. Now, the product includes a full node, a Bitcoin full node. And what this means is that it includes a complete copy of the Bitcoin blockchain inside of it. Okay. There are a lot of Bitcoin wallets out there where they do not have a complete copy of their own complete copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. Instead, they query other people's copies. They'll query an API from somewhere else, which you sacrifice a lot of privacy there and so on. The whole point here is that people should be able to have complete financial autonomy, complete control over their own money.
And complete control, and yet, because look, I've got, to a certain degree, if I have cash, right, in my safe, to a certain degree I have complete control over my money. But I'm certainly not able to instantly send it to someone, anywhere in the world.
Right. You can't take $1 million in cash and send it to a friend of yours or a business in China for 30 cents like you can with Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah. And it's also pretty dangerous for me to be storing $1 million in cash anywhere around me, right? Like that's anybody who knows that I've got $1 million in cash, that's a problem. So let's talk about
it. Would also be pretty dangerous and stupid to store that much wealth in dollars at all.
Good point. Good point. So let's talk about how this thing works. It's a little unit. I think we have a larger picture of it. Christian, do we have a picture of the node itself? So can you talk to us a little bit about this unit? So this is the unit that we purchase, and then we can start in on being our own bank, as it were.
Yeah, well, there's two major components to it. The first is, of course, the fact that it has its own Bitcoin full node. So, if I'm running this box, I have my own Bitcoin full node. I don't have to use anyone else's. And then secondly, it's fully integrated with Open Transactions. Open Transactions is a system I wrote in 2010 and been working on ever since, that basically is a financial crypto system that implements a series of financial instruments. Instruments like accounts, currency issuance, checks, vouchers, recurring payments, invoices. It does bid-ask market trading, scripted smart contracts, and so on. So just a lot of additional functionality that augments the blockchain that normally people might use third-party services for.
Such as banks, yeah. The point of the system is you'll find inside of this software that we're shipping on this little consumer device that we're selling has effectively the same functions that a bank has. It can open an account. You can deposit Bitcoins into your account. You can write checks from your account and your ownership to other people with their stash wallet who can then cash that check to...
I should make a point about this.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand the importance of different financial instruments. So there's a lot of systems out there that, digital systems that just have this transfer functionality. If I get your account number, then I can send a transfer to you.
Right.
And that's not always the best financial instrument for the situation. The reason we have different financial instruments is because the situations demand them. I'll give you a really good example. Just the other day, I got a letter in the mail, and I opened it up, and it was a check for $17 from AT&T. It was a settlement for a lawsuit.
Right.
Right? So they had some class action lawsuit. They had to send a $17 check to 100,000 people or whatever it was. And I got this check in the mail, and it said, must be cashed within 180 days. And I'm thinking, this is a situation where, this specific situation, they do not want the money to leave the account unless the check is deposited.
Right.
If the check is not deposited, the money stays in the account and probably gets divvied up to the lawyers, something like that.
And I'm sure a lot of those checks, for you, $17 means nothing. But when this is some massive, you think about how many of those $17 checks never get deposited, that's got to be a lot of money.
Right, so where do you use a check? You use a check in situations where you don't want the money to leave the account unless someone deposits it.
Right.
There are many other examples of financial instruments that are useful like that. For another example is cash.
One thing to say is, Bitcoin can't do that. You can't write a check in Bitcoin. Now, Open Transactions and a Stash Node Pro, you can.
Here's another problem with that. Another problem with Bitcoin or these sorts of systems where you just do a transfer is that you have to get the person's address before you can send it to them.
Correct.
So
yes.
AT&T would have had to contact me, ask for my address, then I would have had to send them the address. Then I would have to sit there watching the address, waiting for them to send the funds, right? This is completely different than they just send the check and, they don't really need to know what my account number is. It's my decision which account I want to deposit the check into or not. Another example of financial instruments is cash, right? Cash is untraceable, and there are digital forms of cash, and of course our software does include an untraceable cash. And, people say, well, is that dangerous? And I say, well, it depends on how you use it. What if you're using it for toll bridge payments? Shouldn't people be able to pay for a toll bridge crossing without revealing identity in the process?
Oh, very good point.
How about medical payments?
Mm-hmm.
Don't people have a right to medical privacy?
Mm-hmm.
And so on and so forth down the line. Every single different financial instrument has its place. And this functionality used to be supplied by third-party services. But, this is now the 21st century, and we're going to see in the years and decades to come that all those services are going to be replaced by consumer devices.
So talk to us about if someone's interested in starting with the Stash Node Pro. You have a limited. Is it still that you have a limited number of sort of the first run for sale
yeah,
now?
for the first run. This Stash Node Pro we're going to be selling in this configuration for a long time, with the exception of this one being the Founders Edition.
Okay.
This is we're offering this with Bitcoin only. The price right now is 1 Bitcoin, and this is for the people who get it. Our people, we've sold dozens of these units worldwide. People who really understand, oh, this is why I want one. We like the future. We like the vision of where this is going. But these are pre-orders. You're not getting it shipped tomorrow. Right. Our ship date right now is set for November 18th, which is Friday, which is why we're incredibly scrambling and busy putting it all, every last bit together. And I think we're going to make that date for getting those Stash Node Pros out to our users and our customers. But that's what Founders Edition is. Once we are selling the Standard Edition, we will be selling it with, for US dollars, or you can buy it with a credit card. We'll be able to ship out, with a overnight or 2-day shipping, or slow shipping if you prefer. And we're going to be selling these for years. This is a long-term vision. Our Stash Node product line, including the Stash Node Pro, the Stash Node Enterprise, and one other Stash Node that we'll be having in the future in 2017. This is just to kind of give you a little background there.
So is there, I obviously know the value of this thing. You guys have been looking at it, working with it. Is there any particular, I would use the word application, but I guess more person. Who are the people that immediately, either from a standpoint of their industry, from a standpoint of their ideology and belief, whatever it is, who are the people that immediately this thing will be a massive value add to their life, and perhaps is just fundamentally better than what they're currently using in terms of the banking system and whatnot?
Well, I think the early adopters are going to be the first people who buy it. And it's kind of hard to predict where people are going to end up, where first people are going to end up choosing not to use third-party services when they don't have to anymore. Maybe it'll just be a simple cost decision that'll slowly percolate its way out through the economy.
One other possibility.
One other thing I want to say here is that, I'm a big believer that what's happening here in money is a result of natural market forces. Natural market forces are driving this. And so, eventually it's going to envelop the entire world economy, every aspect of money in the entire world economy. So it's kind of hard to pick where things go first. Often you see, new technologies in unsavory niches.
Sure.
I couldn't say if that's how this is going to go. But the technology, like software, is going to eat the whole world. It's going to slowly work its way through every part of the economy until that's the only thing that people use for any kind of financial transactions. And it's also going to open up a lot of new sorts of financial transactions that were not feasible prior to this. For example, a lot of microtransactions, these sorts of things. When you go through a bank, there are sort of minimum costs. And anything below that cost, we just don't have those services in the economy yet.
Sure,
but soon they'll be built into APIs and everything else.
Interesting. Cliff, did you have something else you want to say?
If you want to know the big first one will probably be cloud APIs.
Interesting. Okay, why don't you explain to people what you mean by cloud APIs?
Well, there are different APIs that you can call. You can make function calls and then get some data back. And right now, the internet is about data. I'll give you an example. Let's say that I made an API call to Google Maps. Mm-hmm. Perhaps I had like I have like a Google Maps client on my phone, and it makes an API call to Google Maps and retrieves a map and displays it on the screen.
Okay.
That makes sense, right? And it happens for free. But what if I made 5,000 requests in a minute? Likely, Google would cut me off after the first X number of requests, and they would probably give me a message that says something like, please contact us with a credit card.
Right.
Right? Well, what if I make the API call to retrieve the map and I just paid for it directly as part of the call? What if I just attach a little piece of digital cash to the call, pay for it, and they return the map? And so, right now there's a lot of APIs that are free, but then if you can either use them for free in some limited respect, or you can set up an account with them. They have to have a merchant account, you have to have a credit card, and so on. There's no other way to pay for these API services. But with digital cash, then that's all going to change. You'll be able to pay for each call at the exact same time that you make the call, and you won't have to arrange any other third-party connection in order to do it. And so there's a lot of new functionality that is going to be coming out in the internet and thus the rest of the economy that simply wasn't feasible before.
I'm hearing you almost describing a future where potentially people don't perhaps pay a monthly fee for their internet connection, but instead are maybe somehow attaching money onto every single web page that they pull or whatever. And so it's kind of like pay for what you eat, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, if you want to go long term, it'll probably impact robotics as well. Drone deliveries and these sorts of things.
Wow. I had never even thought about that, but that just opened my mind up to some whole new possibilities. So, if people want to see more, buy this product, follow you guys, follow up on your announcements, where should they go and what should they do?
Stashnode.com.
Got it. And all the information is there. Information about the product. They can buy it there. Yep. Also, you guys are Stash Crypto at Stash Crypto on Twitter, right? So
Yes,
so when
right.
you guys make your announcements, I'm assuming you'll be making them there.
Mm-hmm. We're trying to be much more active with our Twitter account now that our product's coming out. So we have, and our company here, our U.S. subsidiary is stashcrypto.com, where you can get more company information and long-term. And we're still generating videos and information on the product and everything else. We've tried wanting to let's get Stash Node Pro out there. And then at the same time, we only have a dozen people working with us. Most of us are here in Austin, Texas. And we're scrambling pretty hard to get, 2 major products out, including Stash Node Pro and Stash Wallet, so we can get this in the hands of people and really start a community of people being able to get the full functional abilities over time of what this technology, the promise of it over time will bring to humanity. We really want to get this kicked off, and it starts with getting a product in people's hands.
Well, I want to say I'm completely intrigued. I was not, especially on this open transaction side, and I think now I'm sold on it, and I'm going to go get myself one of these boxes. But guys, I really want to thank you for coming on. I think that this is just a completely different from what I'm seeing out there. It's really sort of future reaching, and I love where you guys are coming from in terms of sort of freedom, free markets, and all of the things that I believe are going to really be the future for humanity. Thank you guys for coming on, and I hope that you guys will come back on when there's updates, and maybe when the next version comes out, that you guys will share with us what's going on there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sounds great, and thank you very much for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys, and we will talk to you again soon.
All right. What a incredible interview. It's a disruptor. And like they mentioned in the interview, the banks are obsolete and they don't even know it yet. Things will be changing. And as you watch what's happening in the world right now, with the technologies, with the politics and the news and all that stuff, it's either going to go more towards freedom or less, or the opposite, less freedom. So what is it for you? Do you want to be more free, or do you want to be, I would, me personally, just like you exercise your body and your mind, exercise your freedom. And these are some of the technologies that you can use to exercise your freedom. If you want to know more about Bitcoin or Stashnode, particularly Bitcoin, you can go to activistpost.com/Bitcoin, and there's a free report that you can get, and it really breaks down, the abilities behind Bitcoin. And then also look at Stashnode. I believe it was Stashnode.com. And those are the couple interviews that we had for you guys. We wanted to go over technologies of freedom and how to maximize your freedom using technology. And like I said in the beginning, I do believe that freedom itself is a technology, which is very interesting. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We will be back to our regular program next week with Vin. Vin will be back in the studio, coming back from Acapulco and Anarchapulco. And we will have a great show for you guys and many, many good things to come in the future. I'm super excited. Thanks to everybody for watching. And as always, let me get this queued up here. As always, stay free.